Hola a todos, soy Mike. En este video vamos a aprender todo lo que necesitas saber acerca del uso y omisión de pronombres personales en español. Hi everybody, this is Mike. In this video, we're gonna learn all you need to know about the use and omission of subject pronouns in Spanish. Okay, before we start, I want to tell you a couple things. First, perhaps you're thinking, why am I speaking in English when I'm teaching Spanish? A lot of people think that I should be teaching this in Spanish, but no. This video is intended to all of the different levels, the levels of skills. If you are a beginner, if you're intermediate, maybe if you're advanced, perhaps you're not going to need this video. But nonetheless, if you're a beginner or an intermediate student, I need you to fully understand all the ideas and concepts that we are going to show in this video. So that's the reason why I do all of the explanations in Spanish. So having said that, I want to also thank to all of the people who are participating in the membership program. I really appreciate that. That's a nice way to show your support and your appreciation for everything what we do. And remember also, if you like this video, you know what to do. Share with your friends, groups, social media. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. Click the bell button because we are posting videos on a weekly basis, so you can get notifications every time we do. Okay, so we're going to start by explaining some stuff. Remember that I do have another video in which I explain everything about pronouns. So in the description of this video, you're gonna see there's a menu and you can skip to the parts that might be interesting for you, or you can watch the full video. So let's start with what are pronouns. So what is a pronoun? A pronoun is a word that we use in order to make reference to a subject without calling this subject by their own names. So in the case of Miguel, my own name is Miguel, a pronoun that I could use for calling myself, to make reference to myself, is I am Miguel. So I say she, ella, she, instead of calling her by her own name. So basically those are pronouns. And subject pronouns are words that are basically used in order to replace a specific subjects, usually people or things. In a sentence, we do that in order to avoid repetition of the names. In English, we use subject pronouns in order to indicate who or what is performing an action. In the sentence, subject, verb, object, basically the structure. We use subject pronouns in order to do that. While English verbs do undergo the conjugation, the changes of these verbs, according to the conjugation, is limited. It's pretty much limited compared to some other languages. In this case, Spanish. In English, the only change that we have in verbs when we are conjugating verbs is basically in the third person singular, he, she, it, in the simple present tense. So if I say the verb to play, I say I play, you play, they play, we play. Simple present tense, affirmative form. But if we are going to conjugate for he, she, it, we have to say he plays, she plays, it plays. So this is pretty much like the biggest change that we would find when we are conjugating verbs in English. Remember, simple present tense, the third person singular. Sometimes in English, we don't use the subject. Let's say when we are talking about commands. In the case of you, so we say play the guitar instead of you play the guitar. So sometimes we understand that and we don't mention the subject. But nonetheless, we use basically the subject pronouns and the verbs change accordingly to this. In Spanish, we can omit the subject pronoun. In Spanish, we can do that. What's the reason why we do that in Spanish? We do that in Spanish because of the verb conjugation. Whereas in English, as I said before, we had a verb conjugation in which verbs basically won't change depending on the conjugation. Let's say I played, you played, he played, she played, they played. The conjugation is basically the same for all of the subjects, the pronouns. In Spanish, we do have changes in the conjugation. And because of this, most likely we know who are we talking about. Who is the subject that we're talking about? Who is the subject that is conjugating the verb? Because of this. In some situations, because of this, we can omit the subject. But in some situations, we cannot. And that is what we are going to study now. So let's check first what are the subject pronouns in Spanish. In Spanish, we have the following subject pronouns. We have for I, yo. For, I'm going to skip you for a moment, but let's check this. For he, we have él. For she, we have ella. For it, basically, we don't really have a translation for it, but we could say ello or eso. For we have nosotros. And for they, we have ellos. For you, we have different forms for you, and it depends on the context or whatever we mean. So the first translation for you is tú. Tú means you. If when we are talking about singular, informal, and close relationships, we use tú. That's what we call tutear. Remember that this information, I have another video in which I explain subject pronouns, but this we're going further deep into the use and omission of these subject pronouns in Spanish. We say you, usted, also as a singular form, the formal way. So we have two informal close relationships for singular. We have usted for singular, formal, no close relationships, most likely. We have you, ustedes for plural, and you can find also vosotros, which would be the plural form if you are in Spain, Spanish from Spain. Remember that we in these videos we are talking, basically we are speaking Latin American Spanish. I am from Colombia, I'm Colombian, and my Spanish is Latin America. So in Latin America, we don't say vosotros. We understand if we hear vosotros, but we don't use that form. We say ustedes. So these two to keep in mind. So these are the subject pronouns. Now, when to use subject pronouns in Spanish? I'm going to explain when to use and when you can omit the subject pronoun. So let's start with this. We use the subject pronouns in Spanish in order to avoid ambiguity. So not always context is going to make clear who the subject is. Not always. So we need to make sure who the subject is. Some verb forms are also ambiguous. So we need to make sure who are we talking about. So in this case, in the case of this first example, I say yo tenía dinero. Yo tenía dinero. I had money. But I can skip the subject here. I can say tenía dinero in Spanish. It's perfectly natural. It's okay to skip the subject here. I can say tenía dinero. But out of context, tenía dinero could be translated as I had money, you had money, he had money, or she had money. Because yo tenía dinero, I had money. Usted tenía dinero, you had money. Él tenía dinero, he had money. Or ella tenía dinero, she had money. So if you see that, tenía dinero can be understood for I, you, he, or she. So if we haven't set context previously, we have to use the subject there in order just to avoid this misinterpretation, this misunderstanding. Ambiguity. So we need to avoid this by using the subject. I have these two other examples. I have Mike y Ana son hermanos. Él enseña español. So, in this case, I'm talking about two subjects, Mike and Ana. Mike and Ana are siblings. He teaches Spanish. I'm saying that he, not she, is the one who teaches Spanish. So in Spanish, if we have those two sentences, because the first sentences makes reference to two different subjects, the next sentence has to be clear about who am I talking about. Because if one of them teaches Spanish, I can say él or ella. If I skip the subject there, I can say Mike y Ana son hermanos. Enseña español. Who teaches Spanish, Mike or Ana? Oh, él enseña español. Okay, so there we have to use the pronoun. Without the pronoun, it is impossible to tell whom the second sentence refers to. I have that here in the third example. We have vienen hoy. Vienen hoy. Who is coming today? Vienen hoy. You come today. Ustedes vienen hoy. They come today. Ellos vienen hoy. I don't know who is coming today. Unless I have said that previously. I can say, Juan and Mike vienen hoy. I know they're two. Ellos vienen hoy. Right? Or I can talk to you directly, 2 or 3 people, and I can say, vienen hoy. Vienen hoy. Ustedes vienen hoy. So if the context is not set up, I have to use the subject pronouns in Spanish. Next case, when to use subject pronouns in Spanish is for emphasis. In English, unlike Spanish, we often use verbal stress to emphasize a pronoun. So I can make strong emphasis in a sentence in the subject pronoun just to make emphasis to the subject itself, to understand the meaning of the sentence. Let's say if I say I will go with them, it's just a regular sentence. I can say I will go with them. I will go with them. And I'm making reference to that. Do you remember that famous scene of Star Wars in which Darth Vader says, I am your father? The emphasis in English goes making strong emphasis on the I, on the subject pronoun. And this is what we can see here. I will go with you. I'm being emphatic. I am your father. So in Spanish, it's basically the same. I'm not gonna say yo iré contigo, but I can give a little stress to the subject pronoun in Spanish, and definitely we have to use the subject pronoun if we want to make emphasis on the subject pronoun. So I can say in this case, yo iré con él. Yo, it is I, the one who's going to go with you. I will go with con ellos. I will go with them. Yo iré con ellos. I will go with them. Yo iré con ellos. There I use the subject pronoun just to be emphatic. I can say iré con ellos and we're cool, but if I want to be emphatic, I say yo iré con ellos. Yo voy a ir. Who did the homework? I did the homework. Yo hice la tarea. I can say hice la tarea, no Juan, but I want to make emphasis on that. Yo hice la tarea. It was I, the one who did the homework, not Juan, right? I can say ella misma pintó la casa. Ella pintó la casa. She painted the house herself. Ella pintó la casa. Nosotros decidimos viajar a Europa. We decided to travel to Europe. So in these sentences, if we don't use the subject pronoun, it's okay. But if we want to make emphasis about who is the one who's making the action, performing the action, performing the action, we use the subject pronoun. And the other situation in which we use the subject pronoun is when there's a change of subject in the sentences. So when contrasting two subjects, if I'm saying something when I'm contrasting where I'm contrasting two subjects, the pronouns are frequently used. So in the case, this is pretty much like a joke, but I can say, my treat, you pay. This is something that we usually say here in Colombia as a joke. And I say, yo invito, tú pagas. I can say invito, pagas, but it sounds weird. So when I want to make a clear contrast, between two subjects, I in Spanish use the subject pronoun. So I say, yo invito, tú pagas. My treat, you pay. I can use also stress and intonation in order to do this, but nonetheless, we have to use the subject pronouns here just to make sure I'm making the difference. I can say, tú recoges las frutas y él las empaca. You pick the fruits and he packs them. Tú las recoges, él las empaca. I need to be clear, and I need to contrast the two subjects in the sentence. Ella escoge, yo pago. She chooses, and I pay. Ella escoge, yo pago. And these are the cases in which we use subject pronouns in Spanish. Now, let's move to when not to use subject pronouns in Spanish. Subject pronouns in Spanish are usually unnecessary when, first, when we are speaking in the first person, both singular and plural. We don't need it. It's so clear. So I can say, tengo hambre, instead of yo tengo hambre. And I'm saying, I'm hungry. Tengo hambre. I can say, trabajé ayer. I don't have to say, yo trabajé ayer. I just say, trabajé ayer. I worked yesterday. And that's so clear. I can say, estudiaré mañana. I'll study tomorrow. I don't say, yo estudiaré mañana. I can say, necesitamos más tiempo. We need more time. Nosotros necesitamos más tiempo. I don't have to say that. Estábamos en casa. We were home. Compraremos una casa. We will buy a house. So as you can see in these first examples, we are skipping the use of the subject pronoun. For first person, both singular and plural, it doesn't matter what conjugation, what tense, if we are using modal verbs, it doesn't matter. We skip the pronoun because the conjugation of the verb is so clear that we know who are we talking about. The next case in which we do not use subject pronouns in Spanish is whenever the subject pronoun is it. It. Any sentence in which the subject pronoun is it, we never use a subject in Spanish for that. Although we can translate it as ello or eso, we don't translate it in sentences in which it is a subject pronoun. So when I say it sounds good, I won't say eso suena bien. No, I say suena bien. It's okay, está bien. It hurts, duele. It seems to work, parece funcionar. When we are talking about weather conditions, it's raining, it's snowing, it's hot, it's cold, we also use skip the subject pronoun for it. Está lloviendo, it's raining. Está nevando, it's snowing. Be careful with this one. It's hot can be translated as está caliente. If something is hot, let's say I have my charger and it's hot, está caliente. But I can also say hace calor if I'm talking about weather conditions. It's hot. It's cold, same thing. I can say, oh, this is cold. Está frío. I touch something and I feel it's cold. I say está frío. But if I'm talking about weather condition, hace frío, right? And if, as you can see, I'm not using the subject pronoun at all. In Spanish, we also skip and omit subject pronouns when we are talking about in the commands, in the imperative form, when we are giving commands. So in commands, just like in English, because in English the same thing happens, subject pronouns are omitted. So I can say eat. I don't say you eat. Well, I can say you eat if I want to catch your attention, but I just say eat. Come. Talk. Habla. Don't run. No corras. Let's go. Vamos. Any imperative form commands in Spanish, we skip the subject. We omit the subject. Also, when we are connecting two sentences about the same subject, if we are talking about the same subject, and we are connecting two sentences about that same subject, the second sentence in Spanish may omit the subject pronoun. So I can say, Juan acaba de llegar. Juan trajo las frutas. Juan just arrived. Juan brought the fruits. Juan acaba de llegar. Él trajo las frutas. Juan just arrived. He brought the fruits. I just say, Juan acaba de llegar. Trajo las frutas. Juan just arrived. He brought the fruits. So as you can see, the second sentence is the same subject. We just skip and omit the subject pronoun he. Even his name, I just can skip it. If I were to use the second sentence alone, I have to be clear because I can say, trajo las frutas. Who? ¿Quién? Él trajo las frutas. Okay, he brought the fruit. So if the second sentence is standing alone, I have to be clear. But in this case, we have two sentences. So with the context of the first sentence, I just don't need this. The second case, el profesor está enfermo. First sentence. El profesor no vendrá hoy. Second sentence. The teacher is sick. The teacher won't come today. El profesor está enfermo. First sentence. The teacher is sick. Él no vendrá hoy. He won't come today. El profesor está enfermo. No vendrá hoy. The teacher is sick. He won't come today. I'm skipping the subject because I don't need it. I already know who he is. Los niños tienen hambre. Aún no han comido. Same thing. The kids are hungry. They haven't eaten yet. If I were to say, aún no han comido, I say, who? Who? Aún no han comido, who? ¿Quiénes? ¿Ustedes? ¿Ellos? Who? Carlos necesita dinero. Fue a pedir un préstamo. Carlos needs money. He went to ask for a loan. I don't say, él fue a pedir un préstamo. I don't have to say that because I already talked about Juan. So this is a very interesting case in which we skip the subject in Spanish. And the last but not least situation in which we skip the subject pronoun in Spanish is when we are asking questions in the second person. Second person. Check it out. So subject pronouns are usually omitted when we ask questions in the second person, but this omission is more common in the informal speech. This is very common in the informal speech. So let's check this. Vas a la fiesta. Are you going to the party? The verb vas already implies that the subject is tú. Tú vas a la fiesta, right? This is very informal. Close relationships, right? Tú, remember, you can be translated as tú, right? The hiciste la tarea. Tú hiciste la tarea. You did the homework. Did you do the homework? I'm sorry. That's another example of this. ¿Comiste en el restaurante? Did you eat at the restaurant? ¿Tú necesitas ayuda? Do you need help? ¿Estudiaste para el examen? Did you study? I'm sorry for this. Did you study for the exam? ¿Viniste de vacaciones? Did you come on vacation? I made the same mistake here. I'm sorry. So, if you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sentences in which we are talking second person, questions in second person, singular, right? And informal, close relationships. Tú, we are tuteando, estamos tuteando. ¿Vas a la fiesta? Tú. ¿Tú vas a la fiesta? Yep. So we skip the subject. We can also do the same if we are using the formal way. ¿Va a la fiesta? But that happens when we are talking directly to the person. And we in context, we know that we are talking about that. So we say, ¿va a la fiesta? Asking to you. I'm looking at you. And I'm saying, ¿hizo la tarea? Yeah, I did it. Okay. ¿Comió en el restaurante? Yes, I did it. ¿Necesita ayuda? Do you need help? No, gracias. No, thank you. ¿Estudió para el examen? Did you study for the exam? No, I didn't. No, no lo hice. ¿Vino de vacaciones? Did you come on vacation? Yeah. So, in Spanish, if you have questions in the second form, especially if it's informal way with tú, tuteando, we don't use the subject because it's so clear that the subject is you. So these are the cases basically in which we can use and we can omit the subject. So in a nutshell, subject pronouns in Spanish are usually omitted, skipped. Sometimes we use, sometimes we don't use subject pronouns in Spanish. And it depends on different things. As I explained before, there are some cases in which we have to use the subject pronouns. And this is in order to avoid ambiguity. Ambiguity. I'm sorry, I have issues with that word. But anyhow, you understand what I mean. When context won't work, I have to make sure and be clear with the subject pronoun. Otherwise, we can always skip the pronoun because that's the way, because of the conjugation of the verb is telling us who the subject is. So this is pretty much, this is not really as complicated as you may think, but the idea is for you to start checking on this and start practicing a lot in order to get a full understanding on this subject. Okay, so I hope this has been helpful. It's a matter of practice. This is not as hard as you may think, but it's just a matter of practice. So please watch the video as many times as you need in order to fully understand all of the concepts and ideas. Practice a lot, try and do your own exercises, build your own sentences. And remember, this is a matter of practice. You need to expose yourself to the language in order to improve your skills with the Spanish. If you like this video, you know what to do. Please share with your friends, groups, and social media. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. Click the bell button in order to get notifications because we are posting videos on a weekly basis. Remember that if you are a subscriber, you can also participate during the live classes in the chat. So this is very important because you can ask questions during our live classes, and of course this is going to help you in order to learn more during these classes. So thank you for everything. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for watching the video, and looking forward to seeing you in future videos. Take care. Bye bye.